I'd like to know your feelings on the 99 Amendment and how you would go to about changing it.
Great question.
I've been fighting the 1999 amendment for almost 15 years. There's language in that amendment that can't even be reached. It's not, I don't even know if it's legal. For 30 years, that parent on the roll at the time of your birth, we're a terminated tribe. So for 30 years, anybody born within that period cannot be enrolled. Because they don't have a parent on a roll, that there's no roll to be on. So what I'd like to see it readdressed. I think the membership, as years go on, and they recognize the fact that it's affecting their family, I think we need to bring it back to the people for a vote. I just believe it's wrong. People are entitled to be members. My own 2 grandsons were disenrolled because of the 1999 amendment. My family's roots are strong in this tribe. I am half Native, yet my grandsons are not allowed to be enrolled in this tribe. Our people should be respected, and it needs to be readdressed.
I have actually been addressing this every year that I have run. And it's part of my frustration and one of the reasons why I'm running for tribal council, the lack of decisiveness on our council. There's no reason that something this big that has this much impact on our tribal members, our tribal families, has not been addressed in 15 years. That is, if a child was born in 1999 or 2000 for 14 years or 15 years, they have not been able to be a member of this tribe. And I think it's irresponsible not to go back and address that and do what's right for these split families, for the children who haven't been able to be enrolled, and for the adults. But I think we need to look at not just the parent on the roll, but the entire amendment. We need to look at the Grand Ronde blood. I know it's a difficult conversation, but we need to look at it, and we need to look at it now. And how I would address it if I got on tribal council is I would be a pebble in the shoe of every other tribal council member. I will mention it every day until we do something about it. I'd like to get it packaged in a way that is clear so the tribal members can vote on it and not be held hostage by something else that's thrown in there. Like, okay, we're gonna let you vote on this, but you also have to give us this point or that point. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I wasn't on tribal council when that amendment was passed. I myself personally voted no against that amendment. You know, understand well, and I thank you, Brenda, too, also for that, trying to understand the 99 amendment at that time. You know, also.
I was going to say something.
Turn it off. Turn it off. You did that on purpose. Yeah, that's right. And so, because, and I think with the last Constitution, we tried to have educational meetings on that, and I think, you know, even for me as a tribal member, when that was put out, it was very confusing also. And for me personally, I think what I got out of the 99 Amendment was because of changing it to Grand Ronde blood only and stuff. It was my first thought is that, not to be graphic or anything, but for me, it sounded like it would create incest, you know, because most of us are all related in that. And if you can only have Grand Ronde blood, you know, that means you actually have to marry another Grand Ronde person. That most of us are all pretty related, and so that was pretty much my understanding, what I got out of the amendment, and that's why I voted no. It just seemed kind of creepy to me and everything else. So for that, and I truly concur with my other candidate, my fellow candidates here, too, that it does need to be looked at and it does need to be changed. It needs to be brought back in simple language, you know, for that, and especially the parent on the roll. It is something from that too, because I myself was born during termination through that, and so, you know, and about rolling over the restoration roll and stuff too, you know, that where a lot of families were all enrolling at the same time, you know, so a parent was enrolling with their children, so how could a parent be on the roll first when you are all enrolling basically on the same day? So I guess my question would be, and to check into, and especially with enrollment or something too, is to say, would it make a difference if the parent enrolled on Monday and the children enrolled on Tuesday, you know, or something too? So that would that create a parent on the roll first before you, you do it? So I think that's kind of my thought. So I would be happy to follow up on that question with enrollment at this time. So too, but I truly do. It does need to be.
When I looked at that, and we readdressed it a few years back, I thought the answer was very simple. My understanding of the purpose of the 1999 amendment was the fact that so many people were enrolling in Grand Ronde. They used the term tribal jumpers. We have that stipulation of 5 years, disenrolled from another tribe for 5 years. What more do we need? Who's really going to do that? Who's going to disenroll from a tribe they're in for 5 years when they know we could change again? So I think that's enough. We don't need to put all that other language that people don't understand. Thank you.
Then we'll go to Ann. I think you had your hand up too. Go ahead, and then John. Brenda.
I'd like to start off by saying
Brenda, can you start out? Please. Thanks.
I'd like to start off by saying, please know that me answering this right now, I am very aware that I am missing a lot of important information. I think emotions are really, really high right now around the disenrollment. We should not be doing this now. The process hasn't even been finished, and I feel like we continue to change policies and procedures as we go, and that is not a good idea. For disenrollment, for anything, it's never a good idea to change policies and procedures as you go. We need to think through this. We need to be forward thinking. Before we take action, we need to lay out all the possibilities, all the ramifications, all the consequences before we do something. I do not want us to institutionalize disenrollment. I'm totally against that. I don't, like I said, I don't know what's going on with these. I'm not familiar with the 5 years, speaking of Debbie, and I'm sorry for that. I'm actually a little bit ashamed that I don't know that. You mentioned something about timelines. I don't know how we're making up ordinances for timelines when, like I said, we haven't even finished this. So that's the best I can answer you at this point, and please remember I am missing information, but I will find that out.
Actually, I didn't realize there were 5 ordinances. I know there was one ordinance that I did review, and I did send comments to the Tribal Council. These ordinance changes are happening so fast. I try to keep up on them and read every single word. Every word can make a change and affect us as tribal members. So I've been diligently trying to do that, and I do that because I'm trying to protect our membership. I feel like these are used against the members, and it's just not right. I know the one thing that on the one ordinance that I did look at and I did review, I felt like it was placing disenrollment on fast track. That's what seemed to be happening. I felt like the language that they were talking about as far as removing names from the restoration roll, in the original, I did send the tribal council, as I said, a email outlining what I felt needed to be changed. And one of them was the fact that in the Constitution, it states the language with approval from the BIA, and that was not in the ordinance. It was just council removing, or the enrollment committee removing names from the restoration roll. So I didn't feel like they had the right to not consider what was in our Constitution. They were using an ordinance to bypass the Constitution. So I don't know if they changed that language, if they added the BIA back in or not, because I haven't seen the final. And as far as disenrollment itself, I'm against disenrollment. I have been for a long time. I should say, though, through the audit, I did see where certain, not many, but there were a couple individuals that were dual enrolled and I believe receiving benefits from 2 tribes. I don't agree with that when that happens, but because it goes against our Constitution. But so in an instant like that, the problem is I see where it appears that one person makes that decision. One person evaluates these things and makes a recommendation to the enrollment committee. And the enrollment committee normally takes that recommendation. I believe there's just too much power in one person. And I think the enrollment committee, I don't know how much education they have now. I know there was education being given, but I don't think they had it prior to that audit. So a lot of things happened with that audit and power given to a committee that really didn't have the tools in place to make appropriate decisions. I think that's what needs to happen. But for the most part, I don't support disenrollment at all.
Thank you, Debbie, for your concern also too. And, you know, as a person sitting there, you know, I think as a person there too, I rely on also our executive people, as in our legal department, bringing forward something that, you know, either says right or wrong, you know, whatever to, or if it can be at this time or whatever, but it's still brought forward for a decision. And so in those matters, you know, we don't, I guess I shouldn't say we, no, sorry. Yeah, you have to make like an informed choice, I guess, at that time. You know, what is it, what is the purpose, what are we looking at? In that sense, you know, then, do we look back at, you know, what is on there? Because I truly believe that, you know, when we were restored, our elders are the ones that made, you know, the right decision at that time. And for me personally and stuff too, you know, and that was a record. That was a record, and that they made that decision for that. From that, I wish that, for me, is that wish we would just gone forward after that. You know, in that sense of looking at that people should have just been grandfathered in, whatever it is, just, you know, and left alone, in a sense. We were a tribe, we were moving forward, whatever else, we're doing that, you know, and so, you know, because we are a tribal history, you know, and in some things, you know, that you look at and everything else, I mean, there were probably people adopted into tribe, you know, historically, culturally, whatever. Some of them were put on the list right there just because they were here visiting relatives, you know, something. So you have to look at, you know, they created a record. And I said a historical record, I should say. I'm very honored that somebody is sitting here for our restoration that did that, and was one of those persons that made that decision. And I honor her, and I honor her decision for that. In some senses, you know, you have to look at, or I have to look at, you know, and which I actually do agree with that too. If you are enrolled in another tribe, and see that you're receiving benefits from the other one, you know, then that isn't, you know, fair to the people that were already here. Yes, too. So that is, and that it does go against our Constitution. The amendments and stuff too, I think, or sometimes you look at those ordinance, that upon legal advice too is that it is looking at, for me, as I think with the people that probably absolutely have no degree of Grand Round blood, you know, from them, either they were adopted, I guess that's probably what it is. I think that maybe is the purpose, I think, for the DNA type of thing, you know, is for having the mothers, I think now, DNA or anything, you know, does it maybe look like that we were looking at people trying to serve the system, whatever at the time, whatever else, that's, you know, so that's, you know, we didn't take the BIA out of our Constitution, and, you know, and that, so that, you know, the members spoke, and everything else, and that's the way it is, and you know what, I'm fine with it, I live with it, and everything else too. And so for me, I've always looked at that our people were always our people, and that way through orally and everything too, that's how we knew who our people were, everything too. So in that sense, that's the way I'd like to have it.
A follow-up, Brenda? Yeah, go ahead.
So as far as the resolutions, this is my concern. I don't know about all of them, and now that I think about it, I did know about the DNA one, and so I kind of want to build off that. But for all the resolutions, I think we should do more than put out for public comment. I think we should educate. We should always educate people. There are people who read the resolutions and don't understand them. I mean, the 1999 amendment was crazy to understand. And I consider myself, you know, pretty intelligent and able to read. But the reason why I bring up the DNA is because I've had some conversations with people that say, yeah, let's do a DNA. It proves they're Indian. It doesn't prove that they're Grand Ronde. It doesn't even prove that they're Northwest. Yes, it may prove that they have some native blood in their family, but it will not prove they're Grand Ronde. And so people need to understand, are we doing the DNA to prove paternal and maternal lines, or are we doing it to prove they're Indian like some people think? So I think it's really important that instead of just putting those resolutions out for comment, that we take the time to educate.
Thank you. Anyone else want to follow up on this? Okay. The next question from the audience. Anybody? This gentleman back here, then we'll go to you, Eric.
Is there any way you can distinguish Indian blood outside of DNA, which does not distinguish what type of Indian you are? DNA can only tell you whether you are or not. It can't tell you whether you are Grand Round or not. Is there any other way to distinguish true Grand Round blood?
Yeah. Questions of the candidates. So, is there? Yeah, so DNA probably, it won't, I think Brenda made this point as well, won't distinguish Grand Ronde blood. What other ways can we define our Grand Ronde people then? You know, I mean, that's really at the heart of the question. What is Grand Ronde blood in your opinion? It's not, the DNA test's not going to tell it and make that decision for you. You as elected leaders will set through policy and regulations that definition, bring that to the General Council, and we will adopt that into our Constitution. So what is your opinion of what is Grand Ronde blood?
You're welcome. I really don't think there is a way to distinguish. Absolutely. This question has been asked for decades now. I do believe that we have to go on the tools we have, that we have our census rolls. Inaccurate as they may be, basically what we have. And our treaty and our census rolls. I've read those census rolls over and over and over because I wanted to learn about my family. And if you're on there, and if you're living in Grand Ronde and accepted as a Grand Ronde tribal member, and you're on those census rolls multiple times for years, I believe that's the only true way to determine it, because I don't see, it's not going to happen from DNA. DNA is not going to determine whether you're not going to get that. But if you were brought here and placed on a reservation, because Grand Ronde is a place. Grand Ronde was not the name of a tribe. I mean, it was a place, a reservation that they brought people from many bands, 28 bands of people were moved here. And I myself, my bloodline comes from the Malala, Tillamook, and Wapato Lake.
So you prove that.
From the census rolls. Years and years, since 1855 census rolls. I can prove that. My family's solid in what was considered Grand Ronde. So it would be great if DNA could determine that, but I don't believe it can. And I think we have to be very careful, just like the 1999 amendment. We have to be careful with our wording because, and how it's going to affect our tribal members. And I agree with Brenda. Education. We all need to look at that. We all need to take the time to really research these things and not just let them be implemented quickly, and because it can affect families in the long run, and it's not fair. It's not fair because then we have to fight, and it's not fair to put our tribal families through that.
And I think I think the question for you about can you prove Grand Ronde blood, you know, that is something because of, and I think because I think termination and everything else, you know, how everything married. There are 28 bands, you know, of Indians. We have such a mix of blood. The DNA can probably tell you this certain types of cultures or whatever else, or the people that you have in it, if you're German, if you're, you know, whatever part German, all of those types of things. I think the DNA part, I think what we look at, I think is now with the mother is that you want to, how you connect the birth to that parent. You know, because the parent then, if they're enrolling, you know, just like, you know, they DNA the fathers now outside, you know, but they've never done DNA mothers and stuff too. So you have to, it goes by then, is pretty much because that parent is usually already on the roll. And so then what they want to do is that they have to connect the child to the person that basically is already on the roll. And I think that's really the purpose of DNA. Is it going to tell you Grand Ronde? No, because I think the person that's being tested for DNA, the parents, supposedly if they're going to enroll that, are already on the roll, have already been whatever deemed, you know, a Grand Ronde member in a sense. So I think that's the, you know, adding now both parents, if that, so that they're, and I guess as it again we look at is into then, so that making sure, I guess, that that child isn't adopted somewhere in that family structure. So that's.
Certainly, I have my own idea of what Grand Ronde blood is. What I need to remember is I don't know everything, and I can always learn more, and I want to learn more. I think what we need to do is we need to remember that there are errors everywhere. There are errors in the censuses, there are errors in every record and rolls from years ago. So I think about who is going to decide what Grand Ronde blood is? Who has been deciding so far? And I think about who we haven't heard from, who doesn't come to the table. And I have to ask myself, why are they not coming to the table? I think as tribal council, we need to welcome people to the table. We need to provide safe environments for discussions. I believe we as a tribe get to and need to decide what is Grand Ronde blood, because like John has said and like Anna said, I don't know. I have no idea really how you could come up with some scientific formula for what Grand Ronde blood is. So we as people need to decide who our family is and not let a government mess us up with rules and regulations. So I hope that we can get people to the table, all tribal members, or majority at least, and that 9 or 10 or 20 people aren't deciding what Grand Ronde blood is for us.
It's funny that Brenda would say what she did, because that's kind of how I was thinking. If elected, I'm going to be a pin in someone's side, because I'm going to say it every day. It may not be the most popular thing, and my fellow tribal council members, if elected, may get tired of hearing it, but I'm going to say it every single day. And not just about enrollment, about many things. There's, the rights of our people, transparency, accountability. I might even put a poster on my door. These things need to be addressed. There needs to be changes, and it's all about the rights of the people. That's what needs to be looked at. We need to remember who we represent, who elects us. It's the people, and we need to go back to that. It seems like back in the day, if you read the old ordinances, you can see where they say. They talk about the fact that everything they're written about is for the membership. They're not written that way anymore. Now they're written differently. Now it's for the council. So, yeah, I'm going to be a thorn in someone's side. I'm going to be talking about it every single day.
This is easy. I can just repeat. I'll be a pebble in everyone's shoe. But no, I think, like I said, 15 years is way too long to mess with people's lives. So I will go on and on and on. And that's not the only instance that tribal council has had problems with decisiveness. Look at the term limits. It took 5 years after the survey to get out to tribal council. So I am going to be a little cheerleader.
Well, okay, being on council for 3 years and being there for the first time, for one, I think the one thing that I learned really is that to get respect, you have to give respect. And I don't want to sound like that I'm running on my first campaign too about saying that, you know what, I'm only one of 9. But in that process of the 3 years of looking at that, there is a part about presenting an idea presenting it in a respectful way, presenting it in a knowledgeable way, in a sense of what is it that is going to be the good of our membership. And through that, then you look at it as, how do I get my other fellow council people to buy in on that? How are we going to look at, the importance, and I will say any issue, but we're discussing the 99 Amendment, looking at that, looking at the process then, how you bring it forward, because we need then our membership's support to bring that forward, to become a constitutional amendment, to make a ballot, and to make a vote. Through all of that, and I guess I must apologize to my other fellow candidates that I think beating somebody with a stick to get your view across, I think is not one way of saying that's how I'm going to get my way, or the highway, in a sense. And I think, and I'm not saying it out of disrespect for you, I know both of you, and I've known both of you for quite a while, so I'm not trying to say your way is the wrong way, and mine is the right way. That's not what I'm saying, because I'm still sitting here in a respectful way to both of you also, and I totally respect your opinions. It's up to you, but sometimes, it's like, I don't want to make an enemy, of my other fellow council people so that I can get my way. It is a way, I think, of bringing it away to say, and looking at them about saying, how does this look, and in the best way for our membership, and then how are we going to improve on how our membership can actually stay in our tribe, to stay enrolled, and doing that so that, you win the hearts of, all the people, because, from that, it will, as we always say, it takes 5 people, whatever, for that to do that. And so, in that way, you really, to want an agenda to move forward in some way, then it is like saying, like, how can we all do that? You have to see a benefit, or to help convince them, or to convince my fellow councilmen to say, how is this going to benefit all of our membership? Not just a few, but all of them. And you also have to look at and the future generations of this tribe. So that to me is somewhere, and I think that I hopefully I've done that also in the past 3 years that I've been here also, that I'd rather win friends than enemies, in my sense.
So I think this is the first disagreement we have among our 3 candidates, I think. It's really one of approach, right? Leadership style and approach. And I'll give you a second here to respond and allow you. But it is very respectful, and I appreciate John raising and speaking his mind on this. I think it's a fair point, and I think we should discuss it. So let's continue the conversation and discuss this different approach in trying to enact a change of the tribe. It sounds like Brenda and Ann, and please allow me a second just to paraphrase. You guys are proposing you're going to fight for it. You're going to get in there and you're going to be a thorn in someone's side or a pebble in the shoe until this change is enacted. And I think John is proposing that he'll take a softer approach to trying to enact change. Any response? We'll start with you, Ann.
Let me just say I'm a professional. I've been in business for over 30 years. I don't beat things with a stick. I go in and I am respectful to tribal council. I worked for tribal council for 6 years, and I made several positive changes, and I believe I was able to achieve some good things for the tribe while I was there. I'm extremely knowledgeable. So when I meet with tribal council, I treat them all with respect. I always will. And I bring fresh ideas. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to go in there and slam my hand on the table. But it needs to be brought to the table and it needs to be discussed. I appreciate the fact you want to make friends, John, but our people are important and it needs to be addressed and we need to talk about it. It needs to be brought to the table. If making friends is not bringing it to the table, I don't want to do that. My friends are the people. Thank you.
Brenda?
This is what I love. Everybody is different. And I think that if it is used right, it can create really great things. So thank you, John, for your respect. But I might be getting caught up in semantics, but John did say my way or the highway, and that is never the case. It would not be my way. I would be there to represent tribal members, and I would be advocating for them. And also wouldn't beat them over the head. It's a daily reminder. You guys, as tribal council, we have a responsibility. Tribal members have been waiting for 15 years. So I would just remind every day, tribal council, of the responsibility that we have. It's not one end of the spectrum or the other. I always talk about this. We need to stop swinging way over here and stop swinging way over here and come to the middle. Bring people to the middle of the table, people who are ready and willing and able to listen and come up with a good decision, a right decision, a forward-thinking decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. John, final follow-up. She did it again, huh?
Well, and I'm not here to make somebody defensive or anything else too, because, you know, and believe me too, sometimes or even now too, some of those probably aren't even my friends either. I mean, you know, and there have been times, you know, and for me too, it's also to agree to disagree also, in that sense. And there have been times, sometimes, I have been the only one that has brought something up in a meeting, and I'm the only one that felt like that I was right. But the other ones all basically said no, and everything else. And so, but you know what? Doesn't mean that I'm going to dislike them because they don't believe in my way or in my thoughts. But I like the idea, just like we're doing now. I like the idea that it engages conversation. It engages debate. It engages, because I think if we all just sat there and bobbled our head and everything else like that, then you know what? Either too much stuff would get done in this tribe or nothing would get done in this tribe. So I totally respect differences, different thoughts in all those discussions, and I truly believe that's the way it should be too. But I think the one thing I think that we were talking about this weekend at the Veterans Powwow is that 9 people totally agreed on building that arbor. For that. That stuff like that. I think when you look at something and it seems to be very passionate idea for this tribe, in that way, you know what? Some of those things are very easily agreeable between 9 people. And I'll tell you, on a daily basis, It is not that way. And everything else. And so for that, to do that, it's sometimes, yes, you might want to get in there and you just feel like you want to fight for your idea, or fight for your cause, and everything else. But it's still going to come down to the point where it's like, you're going nowhere, But I think that healthy debates, I think, are good ways for this leadership, I think, to be able to have healthy discussions. And I truly respect both of that, the way you've done that. And for me also, I respect the opinions of each and every one, and respect the opinions of my other fellow 8 council people there too. There might be some days I may win, some days I may lose on that. But it's still not going to keep me from still having an idea or still moving something forward or still being passionate about something, from that. And there are days sometimes I have to lick my wounds and go home that day.